let's move over now to, of course, issues that have to do with the judiciary, as former President Olusegun Obasanjo condemned Nigeria's judiciary in his new book, warning that it has become deeply compromised by corruption. To help put this into perspective, we're joined by legal practitioner Liborous Oshoma. Thank you so much, Liborous, for joining us. What are the broader implications of a former president publicly alleging that the judiciary is deeply compromised?
Yeah, thank you. And let me say first and foremost that what Obasanjo has said is not new. The only thing is that I don't take statements from former leaders of Nigeria seriously. Why? This is not new. When Obasanjo was president, people accused also the judiciary of being deeply compromised. Even before Obasanjo became president, remember Oladipo Dia even accused the judges that judges then used to write two judgments, one in the right pocket and the other one in the left pocket, depending on who is paying more. When Obasanjo became president, we also know how so many, courts gave judgments to favor of government, and in some cases, there were so many innovations also by some state governors. So Obasanjo had every opportunity for 8 years to set the judiciary on the right track, to ensure that the integrity of the judiciary is returned. But he didn't do that. So if I'm complaining, if me as a young man, Nigeria, lawyer, is complaining, and not people like Obasanjo who has been leaders, who had opportunity to correct this wrong they are complaining about today, and then he shouldn't be complaining, because he had every opportunity to set Nigerian judiciary on the right track, to correct the anomalies that is corrected today. But rather, what did he do? He rather, when it benefited him, he looked the other way until now he's out of power, and that little, precedent that he set had been built upon, and today he's complaining. He shouldn't be complaining. He should enjoy the pot of porridge that they prepared for the judiciary. That's all I have to say. Not whether or which area of the judiciary should be corrected or corrupted, or we need reforms on. We talked about even appointment, how judges are appointed to the bench, and the fact that there's need to even segment our courts, and our court system are overburdened, and all of that. All of these things had been there right from time immemorial. Remember, even Justice Kayode Esho once said during Obasanjo's era that the way we were going, we were gradually creating billionaire judges who, at the end of the day, even if you ask them to go and sin no more, they will simply walk away with their whatever gains. That does not take away the fact that there are so many upright, fantastic judges. But unfortunately, our leaders, they are like the ostrich who bury their head in sand and pretend that there is no problem until they leave office. And that's where Obasanjo, has found himself today. He pretends to be the only saint in Nigeria, unfortunately. But he had opportunity to set this nation on the right path and write his name in gold in the sand of time. But what did he do? He was busy chasing totem that he forgot that the problems were there for him to solve.
But for the sake of the good of Nigeria, shouldn't we be focusing more on the message and perhaps in this case overlook the messenger? No. You can't just leave out the messenger who had opportunity, who was given every tool to set the message right. Who didn't set it right? He abdicated his responsibility, threw it all away, and then now turn around to say, focus on the message and leave out the messenger. You remember, during Goodluck Jonathan's time, Obasanjo said that the government was training snipers. Today, nobody has asked Obasanjo, where are the snipers? Today, you talked about, you were interviewing Bolaji Abdullahi just before I came in, and you asked him, what are they bringing new? And the man said, oh, there are some other people. Atiku was Obasanjo's running mate. And we saw how the precedent they set today is what others are living on. And then you're coming to say you have learned your lesson, now you want to correct it. It is the same thing with Obasanjo. When you remember the Supreme Court judgment on Obasanjo's election in 2003, Justice Oguntade dissented that irregularity in Obasanjo's election in Ogun State was substantial enough to nullify that. Justice Oguntade nullified that election in 2003, but Justice Nikki Toby upheld the Obasanjo election. Was it not the same judiciary?
Now you've talked.
What are we talking about at the end of those days? Obasanjo eulogized the same judiciary. Even when somebody said Nigeria was Jagajaga, Obasanjo said it was his father's hand that was Jagajaga. But today, he suddenly remember that Nigeria is Jagajaga.
All right, Liborous, Mr. Liborous, when you mentioned some anomaly in the judiciary that you think that former President Olusegun Obasanjo should have fixed during his time, perhaps you want to mention some of them and maybe tell us how or one of the best ways to go about it.
I told you, I gave you the Supreme Court decision in Obasanjo's election. Let's even talk about the rule of law under Obasanjo and how judges were appointed under Obasanjo also. Because the first thing to sanitizing the judiciary, you have to go back to appointment of judges. How were judges appointed? How is it different from the way they are appointed today? You remember, was it under Obasanjo that you had the Justice Naron crisis in Oshoma? In PDP, you remember also the election petition tribunal under Obasanjo. Election petition tribunals and the election conductors were for the highest bidders. And what did the government do? They looked the other way. Under Obasanjo, we saw what happened in Oyo State also. So it has always been cash and carry. It has always been cash, and the bane of this thing is because of the way our election petition tribunals have turned out, and because it has always been allegedly cash and carry for politicians. And do you know why politicians are so interested in judiciary? They want their wives, they want their daughters, they want their children, their sons to become judges, because the judiciary holds the ace to them retaining their office. And it didn't start from today. It started from 1999, you remember. And then let's even go back in time. In 1979, if you remember, Justice Shoemimo and Justice what do you call it? Fatai Conde, the CJN then, Fatai Williams, sorry, the 12-3 of Shagari decision. If that decision was given today, wouldn't you say that the judiciary was compromised? So our judiciary has always been on this trajectory. My problem is successive government came, they had opportunity to correct it, but they didn't. Rather, they took the benefit of that rot that they complained about today. It's just like tomorrow, Jonathan will come out and tell us that, the judiciary has been so compromised. When it was under him that Justice Ayo Salami was unceremoniously removed from office. So basically what I am saying is that every president that had ruled this country, we saw how they consistently further, pushed down the judiciary, down the abyss, rather than making it, an independent arm that should be insulated from the vagaries and the murky waters of politics. Rather, they pushed it down. And so every government that comes will just take benefit of what had been established. And it started from Obasanjo. And so today, writing letters and writing books that he's used to, unfortunately, because the man is old now and he's a very clever person. So most of the books he's writing now are the legacies that you will remember him for. So he's trying to put down, rewrite history. So that here we are now talking about Obasanjo's book. I'm not talking about Obasanjo's tenure and what he did or what he didn't do for the judiciary. The man is trying to rewrite history so that, when he exits this, stage, what he'll be talking about is his last statement, his last books and the rest, and not what he did or what he didn't do during his tenure as president. He was.
All right, let's talk about how the way forward now, especially when it comes to the interference of the legislative and the executive. What are the constitutional safeguards for judiciary in this case to protect it from being from that interference from the executive and the legislative?
First and foremost, if you look at the provisions of our constitution on the way judges are appointed, chief justices are appointed, we need to ensure that if we say that a chief judge, for example, shall be nominated by the governor, and then shall be nominated by the NJC and appointed by the governor of the state. At the end of the day, we saw what happened in Rivers State, where the NJC and the governor were at loggerhead. I think that with the benefit of experience, the judiciary, the appointment and the appointment of judges completely should be taken away from the hands of the executive. Once you do that, this idea of the bearer is from me will no longer be there. And the process of screening should be transparent enough that we would know the examinations and the processes for examining, would-be judges and how they are selected. That way also will remove this idea of, judges, former retired judges' children becoming judges because they have influences, or senior advocates' wives becoming judges, and the rest. That does not also mean that there are no family history. So when we start from that position, then it becomes easy for people. And then the issue of discipline for judges, it shouldn't just be left in the hands of an ad hoc arrangement. The NJC is an ad hoc arrangement. We should have retired judges who should sit permanently, because Lord Dennis said, when a judge sits on trial, the judge is on trial. So who should sit permanently and review judgments of the court? That way, when judgments are reviewed by members of the NJC who are retired and who have also proved their name in the judiciary, that way, when you are delivering a judgment, you know that no matter the level of court, that judgment somehow is going to be reviewed by a body that had distinguished themselves before.
All right, Mr. Liborous, apologies, but we're pressed for time. We'll just have to wrap things up now as regards this conversation. But thank you so much for having this conversation with us. We appreciate it.